Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Day 3 after murdering somebody.
Whoa! Don't put that on camera.
It was worth it.
And we had sex a lot today.
It was worth it. I got plenty of sex. So I was payment for doing it.
We overcame.
Sierra Halseth and Aaron Guerrero weren't just star-crossed lovers. They were cold-blooded killers. The young couple was so obsessed with being together that they were willing to do the unthinkable, brutally murder Sierra's own father, Daniel Halseth. After months of plotting, they executed their plan with chilling precision. Daniel was stabbed 70 times before the teens tried to cover their tracks, buying bleach, lighter fluid, and even saw blades. But their attempt at a cover-up was just as horrifying as the crime itself. They tried to dismember his body, stuffed him into a sleeping bag, and set the garage on fire. And the most disturbing part, they laughed about it afterward. This case isn't just shocking, it's pure evil. What drove these teens to commit such a monstrous act? Let's dive into the twisted details.
How may I help you?
Yeah, I need a welfare check. I don't know if
On who are we doing a welfare check?
for my son. He's been missing for 2 days. His work's called, his family's called, I've called, his ex-wife's called, and there's nobody answering the phone, and there's nothing. Nobody can get a hold of him, and then his work called, and they can't get a hold of him, and it's really, he just doesn't act like this.
Okay. Does he live alone?
He lives with his 16-year-old daughter, who is not answering the phone.
Okay.
Or replying to a text.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird part is, I'll just tell you this, there's been ATM withdrawals at 3 different ATMs.
This chilling 911 call was made by Daniel Halseth's mother, Christine, on April 9th, 2021. She hadn't heard from her son in 2 days, and that silence was deafening. Daniel was always active, posting on social media, returning calls. He didn't just disappear, and yet that's exactly what had happened. At the same time, his second ex-wife noticed something strange. Hundreds of dollars had been withdrawn from their joint account. That wasn't like Daniel at all. He never took out large sums of money without mentioning it. She tried texting and calling him, but got nothing in return. Desperate for answers, Christine reached out to her 16-year-old granddaughter, Sierra, hoping that she could explain what was going on. But Sierra's response was odd. She claimed that her dad's phone was broken and assured her that everything was fine. Christine didn't buy it. The next day, still with no word from Daniel, she called Sierra again. This time, she demanded to speak to him. Sierra hesitated and then gave a weak excuse. He was in the shower. Christine had enough. She threatened to call the police, and just like that, Sierra hung up. Now in full panic mode, Christine knew something was very wrong. She called Daniel's friend and landlord, Peggy Newman, pleading with her to go check on him. Peggy agreed, but wouldn't be able to get there for a few hours, and when she finally did, she was too afraid to go in alone. She waited in the driveway until a friend arrived. Then together, they stepped inside. The front door was unlocked, and the moment they walked in, they felt it. Something was off. The air was thick with the smell of smoke. A large section of the living room had been burned. Something awful had happened here, and it was only going to get worse. Room by room, they searched, hoping, praying to find Daniel safe. But instead, they walked straight into a nightmare. In the garage, stuffed inside a sleeping bag, was Daniel's body. He had been stabbed repeatedly in the head, neck, and torso. And in a gruesome attempt to cover their tracks, the killers had tried to dismember him. This wasn't just a murder. It was something much, much darker. But who could have done this, and why? Before we get to that, we need to go back to the beginning to find out who Daniel Halseth really was. Daniel Halseth was an Oregon native who grew up in Clackamas County and graduated from Hood River Valley High School. He had a deep passion for music, earning a Bachelor of Music from Western Oregon State University, and was known for his incredible talent on the drums and piano. Friends and family lovingly called him Drummer Dan because of his infectious energy and musical skills. He later went on to earn a master's degree in business from Corbin University. Daniel had a deep love for the outdoors and loved taking long walks, stopping to snap pictures of nature, especially flowers. He had an infectious smile, a positive spirit, and a heart for helping others, especially returning veterans. With his strong background in IT, Daniel was in high demand, consulting on projects all over the country. But he wasn't just about work. Daniel was also big on social media, sharing pieces of his life with over 20,000 followers on Facebook and Instagram. His feed was filled with stunning landscape shots from all over Las Vegas, travel updates from places like Oakland, Boston, and Rhode Island, and even videos featuring his beloved cat, Orange. Just a few weeks before his death, he had begun posting regularly, documenting his travels and everyday moments.
Hello, friends. Over here in Rhode Island, checking out the scene, sporting it out. Getting a hard little bit of windy up here, but little wind up here, but it's just so great. And the weather's been perfect. The flowers are in bloom. You can tell spring's approaching, and all the architecture's pretty cool. A lot of brick.
Daniel met his ex-wife, Elizabeth, while studying at Western Oregon State University. She was a high school senior at the time, and the two quickly fell in love. They tied the knot in Salem, Oregon on July 2nd, 2001. And over the years, they built a family, welcoming 3 children, Dana, Jordan, and Sierra Halseth. In 2010, Elizabeth, then just 27 years old, made history by becoming the youngest woman elected to the Nevada State Senate. But behind closed doors, the marriage was far from perfect. Reports of domestic abuse surfaced, and things eventually spiraled into a bitter divorce. Daniel pleaded guilty to coercion and battery charges, receiving 6 months of probation and mandatory anger management classes. The court ultimately granted Elizabeth primary custody of their children. But their post-divorce battles didn't end there. Court records show that they fought over child support and Daniel's social media posts, which Elizabeth claimed were directed at her. Things got even messier when she tried to move to Alaska with their children to be with a boyfriend identified only as Mr. Helglian in court documents. Daniel pushed back, trying to stop the move, but in the end, Elizabeth relocated with the kids. In February 2012, Elizabeth unexpectedly resigned from her seat in the Senate, citing her focus on raising her children. In a letter to the governor, she said she was forced to leave Nevada because she couldn't find a job, blaming selfish partisans and reckless bloggers for ruining her reputation with salacious, unfounded personal attacks. Both Daniel and Elizabeth eventually moved on and remarried, but Daniel's second marriage also ended in divorce in 2019. Meanwhile, Elizabeth made a political comeback attempt in 2018, but lost her state Senate race, and at some point, she did return to Nevada. Despite everything that was happening, Daniel remained deeply connected to his children, especially his youngest, Sierra. By 2020, Sierra had even moved back in with him, strengthening their already close bond. It seemed like they were in a good place, but no one could have predicted just how dark things were about to get. That same year, the custody battle took another messy turn. Elizabeth went to court claiming she hadn't seen her daughter in months and wanted her back. She was desperate to reconnect, telling the court, Daniel, however, wasn't having it. He completely denied Elizabeth's claims, firing back. In the end, the judge ruled in Elizabeth's favor, stating that Daniel had violated their custody agreement. He was ordered to return Sierra to her mother. But within a month, Sierra was back with her dad. At their next virtual hearing, Daniel pushed for primary custody, claiming that Sierra was living in a toxic environment at her mother's house. He insisted she was better off in his spacious 4-bedroom home, where, in his words, the living arrangements are perfect. Hoping to solidify his case, Daniel even filed a motion to change the custody arrangement and address CPS involvement. But the court records don't reveal much about what was happening behind the scenes. Elizabeth, on the other hand, accused Daniel of playing games with the system. She argued that he didn't actually make an effort to return Sierra and that his compliance with the court's order was all for show.
He can say he returned her, but it was an obvious plan for her to return to him in a couple of hours, and he literally just dropped her off just to say, Your Honor, I followed the court orders to drop her off.
The judge, clearly concerned, took note of Sierra's strained relationship with her mother. To get to the bottom of it, they ordered her to be interviewed through family court mediation, a process designed to help rebuild relationships between parents and children. In Nevada, family court judges generally push for joint custody, ensuring that kids get equal time with both parents. While Sierra's bond with her mother was falling apart, her connection with Daniel was stronger than ever. His social media was flooded with videos of them dancing and going on adventures and just enjoying each other's company. He never missed an opportunity to talk about how lucky he was to have her in his life. But behind the heartfelt posts and happy moments, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Around June 2020, Sierra, who was 15 at the time, had started dating 17-year-old Aaron Guerrero. And this was no innocent teenage romance. Aaron wasn't just a bad influence. He would completely change the course of Sierra's life in the worst way possible. Both Sierra's and Aaron's parents saw the warning signs right away. Their kids were changing, becoming distant, secretive, even aggressive. Something wasn't right. Alarmed by what they were seeing, the parents made a tough call. They forbade Sierra and Aaron from seeing each other. But the damage had already been done. By December 2020, when Sierra turned 16, it seemed like the worst was over. On the surface, it looked like she and Aaron had broken up. People started to relax, believing the toxic relationship had run its course. Even Daniel, ever the devoted father, posted an emotional birthday message to Sierra.
I dreamed a dream when I was 9 about having children, being a husband, and being the best dad I could be like my pa. Seeing you now brings me so much joy. I love you for eternity.
It was the kind of message only a father who truly adored his child could write. He thought things were finally getting better. He thought she was safe. But love alone wasn't enough to stop what was coming next. Because just when Daniel thought he had his little girl back, Sierra did something so unthinkable, so horrifying, that it would shake everyone who knew her to their core.
911 emergency, Guerrero 16497. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
How's it a dead body? Oh my God. 8417 Dumpsy Court. 8417 Dumpsy Court.
Do you need police, fire, or medical?
There was a fire, and we went in to investigate. The fire must be a couple days old. But there's a dead body in the garage we just found. I'm with the homeowner that doesn't live here.
Okay, and you're in there right now?
Yes.
Arrived at Daniel's home, they quickly realized they were dealing with something far worse than they could imagine. The scene inside the house painted a horrific picture. A chainsaw lay abandoned on the living room floor. In the kitchen, officers found a blood-covered saw, along with another handsaw and 2 knives sitting in the sink. Scattered nearby were receipts, one from Home Depot and another from an ATM. It was clear that someone had tried very hard to clean up the mess, but no amount of scrubbing could erase what had happened. Then came the coroner's findings, and they were beyond gruesome. Daniel had been jabbed a shocking 70 times. Out of those, 42 were in his back. One of the knife wounds had severed a major artery in his neck, and both of his lungs had been punctured. He had deep wounds on his shoulders, hands, wrists, and fingers, and at least one of these injuries appeared to have been made with a saw. As if that wasn't horrific enough, his body had been mutilated, stuffed in a sleeping bag, and set on fire. He suffered burns over 40% of his body. But where was his 16-year-old daughter, Sierra? And where was her boyfriend, 17-year-old Aaron Guerrero? They were both missing. Aaron had run away from his home a day earlier, and to the police, and Daniel's family, that was an immediate red flag. It didn't take long for investigators to start piecing things together. Surveillance footage captured Daniel's blue Nissan Altima leaving the neighborhood, and the receipts found in the house led police straight to store security cameras. Home Depot footage showed Aaron buying saws, gloves, and lighter fluid. A camera at Winco Supermarket caught Sierra buying 2 gallons of bleach and using Daniel's credit card at an ATM. At this point, the case was crystal clear, and authorities wasted no time in issuing a warrant for Sierra and Aaron's arrest. Just 4 days later, on April 13th, the pair were caught nearly 400 miles away in Salt Lake City, Utah. And how did they get caught? Over an unpaid train fare. Police stopped them asking for proof that they had paid. A quick background check revealed that both teens were wanted for murder in Las Vegas. Daniel's stolen Nissan Altima was quickly found nearby, and inside, a blood-stained blanket in the trunk. But the most disturbing discovery of all, a video found on Sierra's phone. In the footage, she and Aaron were lying in a tent, and what they said on camera would leave investigators speechless.
I don't know what to say.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel. After Day 3 after murdering somebody.
Whoa! Don't put that on camera.
It was worth it.
And we had sex a lot today.
It was worth it. I got plenty of sex. So I was payment for doing it.
We overcame.
It's unclear if this video ever made it online, but it sealed their fate. This wasn't just a brutal crime. They were bragging about it.
Definitely disturbing when you have such a young man and a young woman that are being accused of such a horrific crime. And when you look at the crime scene in itself, it is definitely something that's disturbing. There's no question they had made attempts to dismember his body. We've recovered a chainsaw, circular saw, and a handsaw inside the house that was recently purchased and used.
After being caught in Utah, Sierra and Aaron were extradited back to Nevada, where they were facing multiple serious charges, including murder, conspiracy, arson, robbery, and fraud. They pleaded not guilty to the charges and were held without bond.
A teen girl and her boyfriend accused of killing her father enter not guilty pleas. This is a story the I-Team first broke in April after the body of Daniel Halseth was discovered. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy has more on what unfolded inside a Las Vegas courtroom today.
Sierra Halseth and Aaron Guerrero entered not guilty pleas. As the I-Team first reported, before their arrest, they recorded a video referring to a murder and laughing. Today in court was a much different tone.
Sierra Marie Halseth.
The list of charges against 16-year-old Sierra Halseth and her 18-year-old boyfriend Aaron Guerrero includes murder, conspiracy to commit murder, arson, robbery, and fraud.
Do you understand the 9 charges that you're facing in the indictment?
Yes.
The teens quietly stand next to each other as they answer the judge's questions.
Guilty or not guilty?
Their arrest sent shockwaves through the entire community. No one could wrap their heads around how 2 teenagers could commit something so gruesome. But no one took it harder than Daniel's mother, Christine. Imagine sitting in a courtroom, staring at your own granddaughter, the same girl you once held in your arms, knowing she brutally killed your son and refuses to take responsibility for it.
Where did the evil come that was bred into a soul that murders their own father?
At one point, a reporter asked Christine how she was handling the impossible reality of having both a murdered son and a granddaughter who was his killer. Her response was cold, but completely understandable.
You're in a tough spot because your son is the victim and the killer is your granddaughter. Can you talk about that?
She's not my granddaughter.
But there were red flags months before the tragedy, and Judge Charles Hoskin, who had been overseeing Daniel and Elizabeth's messy custody battle, saw it coming. During a court session, he expressed serious concerns about Sierra.
I saw a lot of things with Sierra that caused me concern. It indicates to me that something else is going on with Sierra, and I don't know who at this point is to blame for that. But I'm less concerned about placing blame than I am with regard to this child and the child's relationship with a parent.
He even urged both parents parents to get her therapy, warning them of long-term damage.
I haven't gotten to the bottom of what is or isn't happening with Sierra, but I am extremely concerned with what is or is not happening with Sierra. Hopefully, this is not something one of the two of you are promoting, because the lifetime damage to this child is something you'll have to bear on your conscience moving forward.
But even with that warning, no one could have predicted how horribly things would spiral. Daniel's landlord, Peggy Newman, later said, "I hope he didn't see his daughter hurting him. I know he loved his 3 children very much." The prosecution wasted no time in building their case. They argued that Sierra and Aaron had planned to kill Daniel, all because he didn't want them to be together. Since Sierra was under 18 at the time, Nevada law automatically exempt her from the death penalty. But prosecutors are still considering seeking the ultimate punishment for Aaron. At first, both teens pleaded not guilty, but with the mountain of evidence stacked against them, they eventually caved. In May 2022, they took a plea deal and got life in prison with the possibility of parole after 22 years. Aaron at least tried to show some remorse, apologizing to Daniel's family in court.
I ask for forgiveness as I get sentenced today, and I hope it brings you a little peace.
But Sierra, she shocked everyone. Instead of taking any responsibility, she suddenly blamed her father, claiming he had abused her and even encouraged her to drink alcohol.
My biological father has traumatized me, trauma I still have to work through every day.
The problem, none of it added up. Her claim contradicted years of social media posts, family testimonies, and her own recorded behavior after the murder. Even her own lawyer couldn't back her up, saying that the evidence in the case did not allow him to corroborate Sierra's claims. But then in a strange turn, he added, there had to have been a reason for this killing. I don't think anyone here says this wasn't horrible, but there was more to the story. Was there really more to the story? Or was this just another desperate attempt to escape the consequences? One thing is for sure, nothing can change the fact that a father lost his life at the hands of his own daughter. But what do you guys think? Was Sierra telling the truth, or was this just a desperate excuse to justify what she did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you thought this case was shocking, trust me, there is plenty more where that came from. Check out our other videos for more true crime stories that will leave you speechless. Before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. You won't want to miss what's coming next.